Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Sandra Ramani. I'm a travel and lifestyle writer. Been doing this about 20 years. And during that time, I've had the great pleasure of staying at lots of Six Senses hotels. So I'm excited that we have here today Anna Bjurstam from Six Senses. And I just will let her take it away and let her tell her a little bit about her background and her current role at Six Senses. Hi.
Sure. Hi. So Anna Bjurstam, I am the wellness pioneer, a bit of a different title at Six Senses, which means that I and it kind of makes me a safeguard because being a pioneer, you test all things like CBD and other things as well. So I've been working with Six Senses for soon to be 8 years, and this has been maybe the most interesting year. But it's a great. I'm responsible for anything we do with wellness. It doesn't only mean what happens in our spas and wellness center, but also how we build our hotels, what air quality, the sleep quality in our bedrooms, and what food we eat and how healthy and organic that is. So it's a bit of a mixture of everything, but anything to do with wellness literally comes into my lap, and much wider than just treatments. It's building food, sleep, the works.
That must be a very unique role in a hotel. I'm not sure most companies have that role, right?
No, usually they have a VP of wellness, or not usually, but some have. It's not a common thing. And we do have Mark Sands, a VP of wellness, but I'm more the visionary today. I used to be very operationally focused, but what happens with wellness and sustainability right now in hospitality, we need a innovative way and looking at how do we implement it, what do we do, where do we go. So it is very unusual, but Six Senses is also unusual because of how rooted it is in wellness and sustainability.
Yeah, for those who might not know, that's one of the core principles of that brand. It's how it started with sustainability and wellness, and
Yeah, it
right.
actually
So that's
started as a spa and then it grew into a hotel many
interesting.
years ago.
So yeah, always a focus. So are you very instrumental then in development of new properties in terms of from the ground up, sort of like you were saying, making sure the rooms are this way or more conducive to maybe sleep or rest or those kind of issues?
Yeah, absolutely. We are part of how we do master planning and working with our technical services team is what they call those that are in charge of building our hotels, but also what it's going to be. I mean, I'm going to have dinner later with our owner from Ibiza that we're opening next year. And there it's a huge wellness focus. So it's built in a different way because it's very communal. We're going to have festivals, we're going to have programs, retreats. Whereas, for instance, in other locations, it's a bit more private, more exclusive. So every place is different. And of course, our property that we're opening in New York in a couple, next year, and where we're going to have our first membership club, Six Senses Place, is completely different. So there I'm very involved in the design and how we're doing things. And our New York property, we're more than excited about because it's going to be first of its kind the way we're doing it.
And that's residences as well, right?
Yeah, it's residential, it's hotel, and then it's a membership club, which aims to be like a beacon. We're going to have so many CBD products there, by the way. But and Layla and Rebecca and the team there and Dan are working on it. But it's a really cool membership because it's social, but wellness. And we're going to have medical, but we're also going to have shamans. So it's a bit of a mix of everything. So it's going to be pretty cool.
So just as an overview, what are some of the properties opening next year? As you mentioned, New York and Ibiza.
New York, Ibiza, Israel is also out in the Negev Desert. Beautiful resort.
Wow.
And then we have Fort Rawada in India. And we're, of course, Ayurveda and those things is there as well. It's an old fort that's being rebuilt. What else do we have opening next year? I know we have more. Brazil is coming. And
wow, that's a lot.
It's happening.
Yeah. So then to get to CBD, when did you first start to see it popping up in the wellness world? And do you remember experiencing your first CBD treatment and kind of what did you think about that?
Well, yeah, I think it was maybe 3 years ago it started. It's a new thing still in the wellness world, I think, 3, 4 years. And I can't remember when it was on some obscure place that I did have my first CBD because I'm always trying everything new, but I didn't feel much that time. I think they diluted the oils so much. My second one, was much more powerful, but it smelled so much. So I kind of smelled like a CBD plant or a hemp plant when I walked out. So, but then I really felt it. And it was very, very relaxing. It was walking a bit on clouds, I would say, afterwards, the first one.
So you were sold on that, on the effects
Well,
kind of
also,
after.
I think with the research that everyone on here knows about what the research is kind of, it shows that it works in so many levels. There's been enough research done, and the WHO has said that it is completely safe. So I think that has also helped to really realize that this is a bit of a miracle plant that people should really use a lot more than they are.
So have you seen it grown since then, obviously, as it's become more popular, from maybe a sort of health food store kind of vibe to the more luxury, higher end offerings? And how does that play into
Yeah, I
having it
think,
at a
I
club?
mean, absolutely. I mean, it is growing, the interest is growing. What I've seen with various luxury and hospitality brands is that they dip their toe in it. And then someone corporate, some lawyer or someone says, oh, it's too controversial, we can't do it. So I think that's a bit of a problem because luxury hotel and hospitality are not really going into it, the big chains, but individual resorts are absolutely doing it. And we're doing it, of course, at Six Senses. But it's not without, you have to explain to the lawyers and everyone how safe it is and that there is no risks. There's no more risk than essential oils.
That's what I wanted to ask, because luxury hospitality, for all its strengths, is a very corporate kind of world. And a lot of times, you're dealing with ownership and as well as the brand. And so just having to sort of get things through a lot of red tape, I'm surprised that they would be moving, or maybe they're not moving so quickly, but they're moving into that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, they're dipping their toe. They're not moving because there is a lot of red tape. It is difficult. It is very corporate. And it's because they don't understand CBD, I think. And we have to make that, and hence why we're having this talk today, is to get the understanding that CBD is not THC and it's not marijuana. It's something that is actually very healthy for us and it's safe. I think that's where we need to go into. And it is difficult because most of the big corporation, they're saying, no, let's not do it. Let's play it safe. But I also think that it's time for hospitality, especially in this world. It's going to be completely changed in a year's time and how hospitality looks. You need to be bold. You need to go into things. You need to look at different aspects to make you unique, because it's going to be a tougher business out there going forward.
And are clients, guests asking for it more, and maybe that helps move them as well? Or do you see a sort of increase in that sort of response?
It is, the knowledge is increasing. The overall knowledge with CBD, people are using it for all kinds of ailments and for sleep and for worry, etc. So I think that is, people are understanding it more. We're not really good at educating our customers about CBD, but customers that know about it, they're asking, do you have treatments? Is there available? Oh, I forgot my CBD back home and I need it for sleep. Do you have anywhere to purchase?
Oh, wow.
So it is starting, but the problem is also legislation. So a year ago, it was legal here in Sweden, for instance, and now it's no longer legal.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it's difficult on how various legislations work. But obviously in the US, it's legal. We have it in our property in Douro Valley in Portugal. And Javier took it in. Retail, it sells really well, but also for treatments. People are asking, they're curious, they want to know more. So the educational part is also very important for our staff, so they can understand what it is. And because people are saying CBD isn't that scary, isn't that bad. So you have to kind of explain it for the guests.
Yeah. And like you just in mentioning your openings for next year, it's so many different cultures and government entities. And so I'm sure in each one, it's going to be a different kind of educational struggle.
It is. And it's also mainly our owners are very pro wellness and sustainability. And hemp is also such a sustainable part of, so you can use it for so many more things than just CBD. So you can use it in clothing and how you build things and everything. So that we're looking at that too and see what can we do in that aspect. But owners in general are open to it because they trust what Six Senses do and they want to do wellness and sustainability. For I think the other luxury hospitality brands, and I think they need to get into it a bit more, and they will. And I also think as I said before, the market is changing. So we can't just sit back and say, let's do it safe. Let's do what we've always done. Hospitality brands needs to get out there.
So, well, I'm so glad that you had mentioned that you oversee that wellness is not just in the spa, but in other components. So, in Sing Senses, for example, are you using CBD in food or in other ways outside of treatments?
It has not got into our food yet. I think hopefully in New York we will put it in because it's so accepted and it would be very cool to have it. But it hasn't really got into, except there's some hemp sustainability that has been part not in food but in other in the built environment and towels, etc., and clothing. But when it comes to CBD, it hasn't really got itself into food yet. But we are going to work at it as a nootropic, I believe, in drinks and those type of things, because the cognitive enhancement for anxiety, depression, and all those things are really big. So we definitely want to use it as a in various tonics and tinctures and etc. Because we have a whole what we're going to have in New York is also a whole brain health program, and I think
Oh, wow.
in right now people are struggling where their sanity. I think sometimes we are going through all these various emotions of anger and hope and frustration within this whole pandemic. So what we're asking when we ask our guests what they're looking for, they also want to learn how to make their brains more resilient, how to cope with anxiety, stress, trauma, and their CBD has a role to play. So we're going to offer it as that as well. We're also looking at having CBD talks, again, to educate.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because your properties range. With hotels, I always think it's because they're catering to both a local market that might more regularly come to the spa or to like the wellness center in New York, or and then the resort kind of ones where you're getting people just on vacation for maybe 3 or 4 days. So with something like CBD, is sustained use are the best results? Do they come from sustained use? And then how do you sort of moderate what you're offering depending on the client that way, if that makes sense?
Yeah, I think when it comes to city hotels, we have Istanbul, and we have a couple city hotels, and of course New York coming. That's a different. We have this user that comes in and maybe has a different perspective than in a resort. In a resort, it's more educational. It's also to help. We know the effect. We have sleep programs in our locations, and if people see the effect of CBD, we measure people's sleep when they're in our locations if they like to. They don't have to. And then they can also see the effect. What happens if I look on the phone before I go to bed? Or what happens if I take CBD? How does that affect? How does my deep sleep, my REM sleep affect it? So they can also see very quickly the effect of CBD, which is super cool. So I think when it comes to sleep, it's a given for both when it comes to city hotels and resort. But
Yeah.
then, and also when we work with it with beauty. So again, I saw Tracy Brown here said that it is incredibly important with the quality. And I think Tracer from Priya, who is a really cool CBD brand, by the way. And I think that for facials, it's a given. If you're stressed, if you got polluted after the flight, it's perfect. If you're polluted in the city, it's perfect to work on it. If you have backache from the flight, we can work with CBD. So there's so many applications that slightly is different, because I think in a resort setting, it's more introduction, whereas in a city setting, it's more like a ongoing use of it. But also in New York, we're going to have a lot of interesting people and brands to come and meet. So it's not only that we're a social and wellness club, it's also going to be a meeting place for different types of people, companies to present. We're going to have think labs on how to clean up the Hudson or work on the Friends of the Highline and those type of things, that we have people to come together. And I think CBD is one of those things, as well as many other discussion points, everything from microdosing to other things, which we won't have, but they're interesting discussion points.
Well, also people sometimes when they're on vacation, they're more open to something, trying something new, right? So that's also a good way to get them educated and maybe sort of start them on that path.
Yeah, I believe hotels is going to be transformation centers of the future, because it's when you're traveling, when you're on vacation, you don't need to pick up food or clean or pay the bills or anything. You're just there, so you have much more time, and you're also kind of relaxing all the stressors of daily stressors that you have. So that's when you're open to new insights. And in order for transformation to happen, it means that you're doing something you've never done before and have an insight, and then you want to apply it for the future. So I think hotels is truly going to be places of transformation going forward. And especially with all right now, people are wanting to understand how can they build their resilience more than ever before, because they want to be able to meet whatever comes next.
I love that, transformation centers as hotels, because that's what travel really should do, right? Take you out of maybe your comfort zone or expose you to something new. And with wellness, that's so key. Someone asked a question, are there resorts that are offering CBD in their mini bars? Do you know of any of that?
We're doing it in our retail center. We definitely, Layla and Rebecca and I from New York are going to offer it in New York in the minibars. I don't believe we are doing it in many other locations, but we are offering it in retail in those locations where it is legal to do so.
Yeah. So speaking of the current situation, how do you think that will change the perception of CBD, or do you feel that people are becoming more aware of it because their needs have changed, or how do you see that playing a role?
I think people are right now. We're going through a change in the worldview. I think also when it comes to this left brain focus on physics and science, we're going into the invisible world, and people are seeking for ways to enhance their lives, not necessarily through materialism, but through experiences. So I do think that as it comes to a special point, when an exponential point, when enough people know about it and talk about it, that's when it's really, really going to take off. We're still a bit in an early adopter phase, but I think CBD is hopefully in the future of hospitality is going to be in every hotel in the world, because any hotel that doesn't have it, as long as the government says it's legal, is almost it's missing a huge opportunity, not only for themselves, but also for their guests, because it will help them to relax, to sleep, to stress off in facials, and to heal whatever aches you have, or help to not maybe heal, but to make it a bit better. So I think it's just this miracle plant that is so good. I think where we're going to struggle right now is knowing what quality it is.
Right.
And that's
well, several people have asked on the chat too, have asked to clarify what kind of CBD that we're talking about, or in terms of, I guess obviously there's different versions. So what in the hotel world, what are you looking for usually when you use in a treatment?
Well, obviously organic, because hemp is such a toxic absorber, which is great. So we want to make sure that there's not a lot of toxins in the earth where the hemp is grown. And it's also important so we have help with some experts, because knowing about CBD is not that easy, and it's a conflicted world, so to speak. So we have experts to help us with how do we, and I think Jed and the guys that are organizing here is also going to help us to choose the right brand. And it's also how do you actually harvest it? How do you prepare it? All of those things are incredibly important to keep the potency. And when in a lifetime of the hemp plant, and what part of the hemp are you harvesting? And I think when it comes to luxury hospitality, it just needs to make sure that you have to kind of offset the scent with because often the scent can be a bit overbearing for someone if it's very potent. And so I think that's one thing that you have to kind of find. And it's also costly. So it is a costly plant to use, and it will be a surcharge for the guest. But we use experts to really figure out which brand is good. And then, of course, knowing what the brand is and what they stand for and their ethos is important, because we're also very sustainable. So for us, sustainability is important too. So I'm not, so to speak, the harvest expert on hemp and exactly how it should be harvested, but we do consult with those that are.
Well, people were asking, are we talking about full spectrum or hemp seed oil derived from CBD? Or I guess it depends on the treatment, what you might be using.
It does. And it also depends on what's available and what you're able to have in that. So it depends on what's available in that country. The problem is so we would have both, and it depends. We're going to have tinctures, we're going to have oils for massage where it's diluted a bit more, we're going to have facials. So all of those things are going to be hugely important for us so it's going to be both, I would say, isolate derived from hemp seed oil, as well as not only derived from hemp seed oil. It depends on what that little bud that you also pick is, and harvest is also hugely important. And but it's just a matter of water's usage. But we want to make it as potent as possible at work as well as possible.
Yeah. So like in Douro Valley, for example, in Portugal, what are some of the treatments that are using it?
Well, we use it both for retail and massage and facials there.
Okay. Nice. Maybe one day it'll become like this local, where you can have your CBD product from a local farmer, where it's as as common as, because now everyone's looking for those local products, right, when they travel. So maybe it'll become that common one day.
Oh, hopefully, we hope so. It's about education and understanding what we're able to do, but we definitely want to have it as common as anything else in our hotels. And I think we can reach fairly quickly to get to that point in our hotels, because we have our training director and others looking at lots of various brands to put into whatever locations that we're able to put them into. So it's interesting. So we're going through this whole kind of research of CBD brands right now to put into all various locations, because obviously, as many of you know watching this, is that it has to be licensed in the country where we have our hotel, and that is not the easiest thing, not for CBD or normal beauty products.
So does it work like other beauty brands, where once you pick a brand, the trainer from that brand will come and help train your therapists and estheticians, or is that something that you develop the treatments yourselves, or they have them kind of the protocols?
We usually do it in conjunction with with whatever brand, and obviously, if it's a massage oil, we apply it as a choice of massage oil in our regular massages. But if it's a facial, we create it together. And today, we work a lot online with educating our therapists, and not only because of this, but also because of sustainability measures, that it actually works really well to do education, even massage education online today. So it's pretty cool. And especially if you have a trained therapist. So we work, every skincare, every product brand will come and educate. That's really important for us.
That's great. Because when we talk about education, it's not just of the client, of the guest, but of the staff as well, because they're going to get all the questions about, like, how people are asking, is it full spectrum or what is it for? So they need to be sort of proficient in that as well.
Yeah, they will, but we'll educate them and all that. And again, it depends on what country, what we want to offer in what way. And I just saw that Taylor says that Lamb here, that they've received pushback with our ingestible and tinctures. And it is a pushback because they feel like you're ingesting something that is not completely safe. And it's just being uneducated. But I also think that the problem is that it doesn't lie in within the spa in the hotels, because the spa might be educated and want to do CBD, but it actually is part of the GM or the owners who are scared and saying it's better not to do it. I just think that time is past for the future, because it's a new world out there. And hospitality brands, I mean, just here in Stockholm, we had our hotels had 80% lower occupancy, although we didn't have any lockdown in Sweden. But still, it's 80% lower occupancy since the pandemic started, and therefore, I mean, they are suffering. So you have to have a advantage. You have to be bold, and you have to step out there. And I think now is a golden time to reach out to. Well, probably not now when they're not opening, but those that are open, to go out and talk about CBD and explain how good it is and how it can give them a competitive advantage, because that's what's going to have to be needed in the future.
And it's so specific to the kind of issues, as you mentioned, that people are having right now, that we're seeing an increase in stress and sleep issues and anxiety and pain management, and people aren't moving as much, maybe, all the things that are going on is what it's good for. So,
and I think it's important to have it as a component of a bigger program. So again, that you introduce it that way. So our brain program, the brain resilience program that we're introducing later this fall, where we have all aspects, how you sleep, how you move, and also nootropics on how do you actually grow new synapses in the brain, etc., and how do you relax anxiety is going to be really, really important. People are looking for help. So CBD is a safe part there. So you can bring CBD into an anti-aging, or if you have facials, of course you bring that into a facial program. So there's a variety of ways, but I think also one way to educate the guest a bit more is to bring it in not as an alone, standalone offering, but also bring it into various programs that the hotels offer.
Yeah, I mean, it's great for dehydrated. It's so many different uses. So, so when you meet with other, or like sort of hospitality conferences, or when you meet with people from other brands, is this a topic that you all are talking about, or do you see it sort of emerging?
Not as much as I would like to.
Oh,
I have to say, I think it's still very early. I think we're late in the hospitality industry to adopt these things. So there has been talks. Usually in a conference, there might be one talk, but it's not that. It's not part of it right now as much as one would want to. And I think again,
wow.
and I think spas and hotels have had a very traditional way of doing what they've always done. And it hasn't evolved that much. I think we're in the time now that it's going to evolve. And I think these things, we are seeing an interest in anything from CBD to also, as I said before, understanding microdosing and understanding breath workshops and all those things that can help alleviate stress. But it is still a bit early days, but the interest is there. I mean, the Global Wellness Summit actually released their trend forecast in January this year, and one of them was energy medicine. And yeah, which I love because I'm a trained shaman. And but energy, and when we asked the journalists and people what of these different trends that was given out in January, which ones are you most excited about? It was an overwhelming majority for energy medicine. So people are interested in exploring these new things. I just think that we're taking the safe route. And that's why it's so important that we're profiled in these type of conferences, so we can talk a little bit more about it.
I just hope there is that thoughtfulness behind it, and it's not another buzzword that becomes, so there's so many trends that come and go, and then suddenly everyone's like mindfulness or whatever. It's like the trend of the thing, but something like this, it needs that sort of solid education behind it as well.
Well, I think CBD, if something works, it's like Ayurveda, it works.
Yeah.
And therefore it's still here 5,000 years later, and people are adopting it. And the same thing with CBD, it works. And when people understand it, and I just met someone, I went to Optimist Kitchen in New York and bought this beautiful CBD blend a couple of years ago. And I had a friend here who had problems sleeping, and I gave it to them, and they were like, it saved my life. It's changed, CBD has changed my life. And more people understand that, it's just going to spread.
Wow. Excellent. Well, I think unless anyone has any other questions, I think we sort of hit some of those. So thank you so much, Anna. It's been so great to talk to you and hear really exciting things that you guys are doing.
Yeah, we're excited about the future and pushing our boundaries. And introducing CBD, especially in New York, it's going to be a fantastic place. So thank you.
We're excited to check it out. And thank you everyone for coming by.
Thanks everyone.